Hi, this is Captain Chris Myers of Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters. What we're going to show you in this video is what fly casting should look like, and then some examples of some common mistakes and what they look like. And you can compare what you see in this video to your own casting, and maybe you'll see some things in here that will help you become a better caster. So first, what we're going to show is a simple pick up and lay down cast and what that should look like. And if you watch, the rod will always start down at the water, down at the ground, so I have a full range of motion. There's a couple forward strokes, a couple back strokes, stop, follow through, and lay down. There always has to be a stop and a follow through on that final delivery. So it's a back stroke, forward stroke, back stroke, forward stroke, lay down. What I want you to notice is that there's a loop coming off the tip of the rod, kind of like a candy cane. The thinner the loop, the more aerodynamic it'll be, and the farther you'll be able to cast with less effort. So here it is in slow motion, so you can watch that loop forming off the tip. As I come back, the rod stops going up and back, so does the loop. The loop is going to travel in the direction the rod tip was going just before it stopped. The rod tip travels slightly down and straight ahead in the front, slightly up and straight back on the back cast. So the back loop goes up and away so it doesn't hit the water. Forward cast unrolls right above the water, so when we stop and deliver our fly, it only has a couple of feet before it gets into the water. As the elbow is bent, it's staying next to my side where everything's nice and comfortable. Casting foot slightly back. My casting hand is staying below my shoulder, again where it's much more comfortable. So here you see that cast in full speed again, at a little quicker pace. And you can see how tight those loops are. And a tight loop is kind of like a Corvette going through the wind, where a big wide open loop is not aerodynamic or efficient at all. And here's more of my casting stance. It's tipped out to the side. You can't see the loops as well on the video, but that's what it looks like when I'm fishing. I tip the rod tip out at 45 degrees or so. It's a little more comfortable. So here's what happens when we bend our wrist when we fly cast. The fly rod travels around like a windshield wiper, and you'll notice that there is no more loop, unlike what we saw a couple seconds ago. In the proper cast, here's what I see a lot of times, where people just hold their arm still, bend their wrist, and wherever that rod tip goes, you watch the fly follows that path, except at a much more exaggerated path. The fly now is way, way above our head, and you can imagine, even with a slight breeze, what's going to happen to that loop as you try to throw it out, more than 20 or 30 feet. It's going to fall and land in a big pile. Another common mistake I see is the arm straight out to the side. When we have our arm straight out to our side, you're not making a straight line path with that rod tip. And here's another mistake, dropping the tip on the final delivery. Here it is in slow motion. We have nice tight loops. Everything's going well, high in the back, low in the front, and then in the final stroke you watch where the rod tip stops. It comes straight down to the ground, and that's where the point of impact is. And you'll notice there was no loop on that final delivery. Here it is again. You see the fly line is landing just a couple of feet off the tip. It's right where the tip was pointed just before it stopped, and that's exactly where the caster told it to go. So that's a common mistake I see when people want to throw farther. They do it harder and come right down to the water. Here's what causes those wind knots. It's a tailing or closed loop. You'll see it on the final stroke. There it was, and you get to see it a little bit better in slow motion here. We have a proper stroke with a nice open loop, nice tight loops, and then on the final stroke, look where the rod is stopped, and you'll see that intersect. And here it is on both the front and the back cast. and you see how short the path of that rod tip is. Each time the fly line, the lower leg is intersecting the top leg, and when you have a hook on there, it's very likely that it's going to catch on it, or it forms a nice overhand knot in your leader. And to close out, we're just going to show once again what the casting should look like. So slightly up in the back, slightly down in the front. There's very little effort. Once again in slow motion, you see it comes up and away in the back. You can watch that loop form off the tip and watch the tip follow a straight line. You draw a straight line between those 2 points. That's where the rod tip's traveling, then you get a nice tight loop. And the final stroke, you have to stop the same place you did every other stroke. So there'll be a stop, and then there'll be a distinct follow through after that stop. So I'm going to stop. I think there's one more stroke here. So there's a stop, and then I follow through, bringing the rod tip down as that loop is almost all the way unrolled. And you follow those simple tips, a straight line path of the rod tip, keeping your wrist from bending. So have a nice solid wrist, don't bend your wrist. Proper timing, allow that loop to unroll in front of and behind you, and stop and make a follow through. And these tips will help you become